I think it's just really important that we understand that this is a journey, and I had to go through every miserable experience that I went through in order to be here. Like, it just had to happen. I had to lose, I had to get locked up, I had to just completely fall into utter desperation, because that desperation became the gift of recovery.
Substance abuse is the overindulgence or dependence on an addictive substance, especially alcohol, prescription drugs, and/or illicit drugs. In the United States, 11.4 million people misuse prescription opioids, and 886,000 people use heroin regularly. According to the National Institute of Health, the number of deaths involving all drugs was said to be approximately 72,306 in 2017. Ohio ranks in the top 5 of opioid overdose-related deaths in the nation. In 2016, the Ohio Department of Health found that unintentional drug overdoses caused the deaths of 4,050 Ohio residents, which was a 32.8% increase compared to the 3,050 overdose deaths in 2015. Right now in Hamilton County, 25% of all deaths are opioid-related. In 2017, there were reported 856 deaths per 100,000 people from drug overdose. Even though 2018 isn't over, there has been an increase to 949 deaths per 100,000 people and counting.
Right now in our culture and our society, we're not giving enough resources to really fight this epidemic. And that's what it is. It's an epidemic that is killing our society, and we really need to start focusing on how we can really challenge the myth of they're just immoral or they just want to do this. No one wants to be homeless on the street. No one enjoys living like that. But we need to really think about how can we as a community come together to help these people in need.
We're all people. Everybody has a story. I mean, it takes one bad decision to change the whole course of your life. Not everybody is from poverty. Not everybody had the luxuries of education. I had a parochial school education. I graduated from high school.
There's somebody's mom, there's somebody's aunt, there's somebody's daughter, there's somebody's sister, you know, there's somebody's cousin, there's somebody's best friend. And whatever you see out here is not what's in here. And I think we got to get to what's there. And until we see what's there, we're not going to know the real person. And how can we help somebody we don't know? We can't.
With the situation on addiction, we have to look at the fact that spending all these millions of dollars is not going to be beneficial if we don't look at how they got there in the first place. If we don't take away the source of the creation of the addiction, they're going to go right back to it, either by desire or by necessity.
So the community needs better education about understanding addiction. I think that's a big misnomer, that people do understand it and they don't. And we also need to understand the backstory of the people that we are working with. No one's ever going to get set free from anything, no matter what it is in their life, if they don't understand why they respond the way they respond to things in their life and what brings them to a certain point in their life.
I started using as an addict would use at a very young age. I grew up in a dysfunctional household. I don't know. Honestly, I just know that when I started discovering alcohol and drugs, I felt like I could breathe. My most significant struggles was the heroin habit, the crack habit, being homeless, being submerged into a life of crime. The entire existence was a struggle. I just didn't realize. I thought that that was just the hand life dealt me, and that was how I was supposed to live. I kind of looked at it as just bad luck. So those were the main struggles. Not feeling safe, not having support. I mean, everybody out there is doing what you're doing. They're trying to make money and come up, and you're living day by day. So it's a very primal environment. You have to have predator instincts to survive it on a daily basis.
There's a negative stigma that goes along with addiction, period. You know, whether it's alcohol or drug addiction.
Trust is a huge barrier for them because typically, You have to understand that their trauma probably came at a very early age, so their trust of people that they were supposed to be able to trust, that were mom and dad and grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, whoever it was, and they betrayed that trust, and that was a person I'm supposed to be able to count on, and they don't trust very many people. So when you make a commitment to one of these girls, you better keep it, or don't commit to anything.
If I could prevent going to the emergency, I would. And a lot of times it was because I was one of those addicts because of the continuous crack use and the heroin in combination. I moved a lot. I was a picker, so I would have sores that I had made, and I had also continued to pick. Then you're in an environment where you're constantly going in and out of abandoned buildings, you're hanging on the streets, so those things get infected. So because I looked the way I did and because of my movements, I was hard to be around. I had a lot of negative experiences with the emergency room because of how I presented and my inability to talk. I had been submerged in that whole street lifestyle, which is a very real subculture, for so long. I didn't know how to sit down and have conversation. I was so used to putting narcotics in me, I didn't know how to articulate how I was feeling or what was going on with me. So I was a tough patient to experience. So I would try not to go to those places. A lot of times they thought I was drug seeking, which wasn't the case with me because the drugs that I sought, they didn't provide. And I didn't have a problem getting drugs. I knew how to get money. If I made it to the emergency room, it was literally because something had become so drastically wrong. My infection had taken away my ability to feel the narcotics that I do take, so I needed an antibiotic. So sometimes that was frustrating for me, like you guys don't even prescribe what I want, like I'm not here for that reason. And because I wasn't able to appropriately communicate, it could become very negative.
Remember that you guys are to treat the whole person. That means her addiction, along with the reason why she came in the ER, because quite frankly, they can get better drugs out here than you'll give them. They don't need your Clozapine, they don't need your Trazodone, they don't need your Tramadol. That does nothing for them. It's a joke. Because if you went through these files, I have prescriptions from hospitals they won't even fill. We think, as someone that's not a user, taking them in there as medical professionals, they're coming in there looking for drugs. They ain't looking for your drugs. They can spend $20 on a hit of heroin and get better than what you're going to give them. They're in there because they need medical help, whatever that looks like, whether it's mental help or physical help. So we have to start treating, and that's going to help our you asked me what would help this population. That'll help the drug population right now, is when they come in, start treating the whole person, because they are medically hampered by their drug addiction, because it's causing a whole host of things: abscesses, infections, endocarditis, MRSA in their lungs. I mean, it just goes on and on. HIV, Hep A is on the rise right now, hepatitis C.
I have been in recovery myself since April 16, 2014. I met Scarlett many, many years ago when I was downtown. I was in Over the Rhine for 13 years, homeless, addicted to drugs, and just caught up in a lifestyle that, had consumed me. I didn't know that there was a way out. I had lost all hope. So I had met Scarlett. She was working with the Dream Center, which was one of the outreach ministries that would come out and feed or, give coats, offer prayer. She did not have Women of Alabaster back then, but she was just a very nice woman, and I loved her fiery red hair, and she just had a great personality. So it was easy for me to talk to her, and she just stayed a continuum in my life. So I was downtown for 13 years, and then things got really bad, and I think they were always really bad. I just didn't notice because, you know, being that I was on drugs and I had a couple of habits, I didn't really feel the reality that I was living in. So at some point, the drugs stopped taking away my reality, and I knew that there were some changes that need to be made in my life. I didn't know if it was possible, but I knew that I needed to try to do something, or that I was going to die out here, and I just didn't want to die out there. So I went to Off the Streets. After a jail stay, I'm one of those people that have, you know, the barrier of a criminal record. So I went to jail, and it wasn't like it was anything new. It was just, I decided I was going to try to do something different with my life, and that's when I went into the Off the Streets program. That was in 2012. So I stayed for like 8 months, and I got out. I got my own apartment, my first apartment ever, and I relapsed. I didn't end up back where I had been prior, just because I knew that wasn't how I wanted to live anymore.
Women of Alabaster is a faith-based organization, and our goal is to gain the trust of the women in the population that we serve, and then to help them find resources and ways to better serve themselves and to come off the streets.
Art therapy is considered a form of psychotherapy and is used as a form of communication or self-expression. Art therapy allows the individual to express feelings that may be difficult to verbalize. We wanted to bring art therapy into Women of Alabaster to help these women cope with the stress and trauma they may be facing or have faced in the past. We wanted to connect with these women and ultimately listen and learn from their stories. Art therapy allowed for a non-threatening and welcoming environment that gave the opportunity for self-expression, creativity, and open communication. From our experience, we learned that every woman's journey is individualized and no two struggles are the same. This population needs someone to protect and care for them, and our experience helped open our eyes to those often left behind and forgotten.
The best way to help, in my personal opinion, is to understand they are living, loving human beings that are in a crisis. Whether the crisis was brought on by a moment of weakness and being influenced by friends or relatives to use, or whether it was accidental. A lot of times, especially with the opiate crisis now, a lot of people never knew they would be an addict, but for whatever reason, a car accident, whatever, they wound up getting opiates and became addicted to it. Not everybody that does opiates is going to become addicted, just like not everybody that drinks a beer is going to be an alcoholic.
Use compassion and love. I mean, we never know when somebody is going to become committed to recovering from whatever it is. It doesn't even have to be drugs and alcohol, it's a lifestyle too. And I think that's what some people forget. I mean, some addicts have become so engulfed in the lifestyle, which is a very real subculture, and it has roles, it has, you know, rules, just like any other society. This accomplishment is my sobriety, because so I was down here 13 years, but for 17 years of my life I was a heroin addict. So I had no belief that I would ever be able to be substance free. Like at the best, I would be on a maintenance drug, you know what I mean? I had tried those never worked for me. So my value of my ability to value life was so strained. So just my sobriety amazes me still to this day. I'm like, what? Because I literally couldn't go a couple hours without having something in me. I literally would break down. So my sobriety, mothering my 4-year-old child, because I missed the experience of mothering my 22-year-old daughter, being employed, working with women just like me, being able to bring positivity to the community of Over the Rhine, being able to love these women, you know, it just, my life is amazing.
As a nurse, don't lose your empathy for people. Don't lose the reason why you got into it was to help somebody, and not always medically. You're going to do more for somebody loving them than you are anything you could do for them medically, because love heals.